welcome Matt and Kendal Hagee.
Hello and welcome to The Difference. Today we are so glad that you've joined us as we're discussing finding hope in hardship.
Just like it says in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future."
You know, you may be going through a hard time right now, and you may be wondering what God's plan is. I assure you, God's plan is for your good. He wants to give you the confidence to trust in Him in every season of your life. On our program today, we're going to be visiting with two women who are going to share some of their stories on how they found hope amidst hardship. Take a look at this video, and we'll be right back.
The nightmares alone are really difficult. I wake up in extreme panic, like I'm sweating and screaming, and I do good at controlling my subconscious throughout the day, but then when I sleep, I guess I'm a lot more messed up than I think I am. The first thing, being a mom, I thought of was my baby. Where is he? I could hear him, I couldn't see him, I didn't know where he was. I was trying to get up, and I realized I couldn't even sit up, much less get up on my feet. I looked down at my legs I thought were gone because I couldn't see them. My bones were laying next to me on the sidewalk. I realized that Noah was in the back of me, and I had reached for him, and my left hand the bones were completely exposed and sticking out. It was wide open, and blood was rushing down my arm, and I was like, all right, won't be picking up Noah with this arm. At that point, I laid back, and I really thought I was gonna die. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know if I had injuries to my organs or what was going on, but I knew that I was in the worst pain I've ever felt in my life.
Would you make welcome to The Difference, Rebekah? Rebekah, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you. You know, what a story how April the 15th, 2013, and it just seemed like another simple day on the calendar, but it became one of those days that changes your whole existence.
It absolutely did.
Yeah, and now whenever you walked into this situation of circumstances, what did you initially feel was, you know, the response to, my goodness, I've just been involved in an act of terror? I mean, that's something that nobody really expects.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, and it's still hard to wrap my head around, even here we are 4 years later. And because I remember waking up from a medically induced coma, and I'm staring at 4 blank walls, and I've got tubes down my throat, and I'm thinking, how in the world does my life go on? How did I get here? Where do I go from here? And so it's so scary, but I think everybody has times like that where life blows up in their face, and you're like, what do I do now?
And you were at the marathon watching as a spectator and had your 5-year-old son, Noah. Tell us, what was your reaction with him? You had him down by your legs, right?
I did. We were in the crowd, and a lot of people think that I was running, and I'm like, no. I was on the sidelines wondering why anyone runs that many miles.
Yeah.
And my son was with me. He was 5 at the time, and we had all made our way, a group of 9 of us, at the finish line, and so we had decided we wanted to get as close to the action as possible.
Yeah.
And Noah had gotten really bored because there's only so many runners he can watch stream by, and so I told him, I said, buddy, why don't you sit down on my feet, and this will be all over soon. And that's where Noah was when a bomb in a backpack went off 3 feet behind us.
Wow. And you know, you mentioned 4 years later, there's a lot of big days, small victories, setbacks that happen in that 4-year period of time. What have some of those been in your life that you know, you really, you start to think, okay, we're going to get through this, and then something happens, you say, we're not going to get through this, and you just continue to kind of live and walk through that day by day?
I think it's like for anyone else, you count your blessings and not your problems. You know, I woke up and immediately, you know, I was thankful to be alive. I was thankful that my son was sitting on my feet, because they said had he been standing, he would have died instantly upon impact. But Noah virtually walked away from it. He had a cut to his bone and a piece of shrapnel that grazed the back of his head. I went on to lose my leg a year and a half later. I've had 65 plus surgeries to repair damage from the bomb. I almost lost my hand and other things. And, you know, there are so many things that try to steal our joy in life. And there's been so much these past 4 years. PTSD is a very hard part of my life now. It's hard to go on after someone has tried to take everything from you. But, you know, God is still very real, and he's much bigger than all of my problems.
And I think that that's a very important thing for people who are struggling with certain circumstances, regardless of what they happen to be, you know, to understand the importance of perspective, to count those blessings, to sit there and say, God, thank you for today's victory. You know, this victory is going to give me the strength to believe for another victory. And kind of really be willing to endure the hard days, because you don't get to cancel them out. You just kind of, you have to look beyond them and push through them. And be willing to accept them when they come, and know that if you got through one, you can get through another.
That's right.
Hard days will always come. 6 months before Boston, I got held up in a Walmart parking lot, robbed at gunpoint. After Boston, they told me I would never be able to have another baby again, and I did, but I almost lost my life, and she almost lost hers. And, you know, hard things are everywhere, and they're going to keep happening, and I'm not naive to think that they're not going to happen to me. But every time I wake up and I put a prosthetic leg on, I'm thankful that I have a daily reminder of how short life is. And I want to share, you know, my love and God with whoever I can.
And a lot of that's what you shared in your book, Taking My Life Back, which, you know, that's really what was taken from you. Even though you didn't lose your life, your life was totally redefined.
Absolutely.
You know, the path you were on, the decisions you thought you had the power to make, suddenly somebody tried to change the script, but you're taking it back one day at a time. And part of it's that perspective. What is it that you're doing now, you know, that's different from where you were, you know, on your life path before the bombing?
Life is so different now. I don't even recognize it, really. I now travel all over the world speaking, which has been incredible. I am so humbled to be able to share my story with people, and if I can touch one other person in a room full of people, or if I can help someone based on everything that I've been through, then, you know, that's worth it, because I feel like we're here to be witnesses for Christ. And life is not easy. It says that many times in the Bible, but this is all temporary. You know, one day I'm going to be whole again, and I can't wait for that.
That's amazing. You were talking in your book about how you were a single mom at the time with Noah, and waking up and having this hardship, but you found the hope in God. What can you tell a viewer that's watching that maybe she's going through something, she's a single mom and she's going through trials and tribulation, and she needs to find hope in God?
That this is just a chapter. You know, so many tough things happen, but if I look back on my whole life and I look at all the chapters that I've been through, sometimes those lead you to the most beautiful places of all. And so that single mom who had no hope in any type of man or happy ending now has an amazing husband who is an amazing father to both of my kids. He adopted my son Noah a couple weeks ago. It was finalized. So this is a great chapter in our lives, and I'm very blessed, and just keep going.
When we come back, we're going to continue talking with Rebekah. I don't want you to go away, because she has a very important message to share about grace, forgiveness, and mercy. You don't want to miss it. You're watching The Difference.
Dear Pastor Hagee, I just wanted to write you to say how honored Rayla Jean and I are to have been partners in your ministry all these years, and to see all the amazing things you've accomplished around the world with the gifts we and others like us have gladly given over the years. Furthermore, it has been so refreshing to see the younger generations coming on board to partner with you in spreading Christ's message to the world.
I want to welcome you both to Partnership with John Hagee Ministries. Together, we will make a great impact for Christ around the world.
May God continue prospering you in all your endeavors. Your dear friends, Ron and Rayla Jean.
I want to thank you, our Salt Covenant partners, for making it possible for us to preach the gospel to the nations of the world. Thank you, and God bless you.
Become a Salt Covenant partner today. Call the toll-free number on the screen or visit us online at jhm.org.
What you see is a child reaching for her mother. There's nothing more beautiful than for a child to know that they're loved. There are thousands of children who are reaching for someone who will not reach back because they're not there. This is the reason we're building the Sanctuary of Hope. I want you to help me help these children have a mother that will take care of them, that will love them, that when they cry in the night, someone will come. When they get hungry, someone will feed them. When it comes time to teach them the way of the Lord, that someone will be there. And together, with the Sanctuary of Hope, we can make this happen. God bless you for all that you do to make the Sanctuary of Hope a reality.
Help give the gift of life. Call the number on the screen or visit jhm.org.
Enjoy watching The Difference but want a more behind-the-scenes look? Learn interesting facts about our guests, comment on our segments, and find out more about the show by following Matt and Kendal on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Keep watching The Difference and follow us on social media to find out more.
Welcome back to The Difference. If you're joining us, we're visiting with Rebekah Gregory, and she was an individual that was just a spectator at the Boston Marathon on April the 15th, 2013. On that day, the Boston Marathon was, a race that had a lot of attention, but it really wasn't a household word. Now, 4 years later, it's a household word. The names like Tsarnaev are certainly known. And yet there's something that you've done in your life that has helped you move past that moment where you actually wrote a letter to the Boston bombers. What was that letter about and why'd you do it?
Well, I was asked to testify in the trial in 2015, and 2 FBI agents came to my hospital room. I had just had my leg amputated, and they said, by the way, we need you to testify in the trial of the remaining bomber. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to at first.
You just like, leave me alone.
Yeah, because I didn't want to think about anything, because they didn't think about us, obviously, that day, so I didn't want to spend any time on it. And they said, we really need your testimony. And so I did. I went back to Boston and I testified. And when I got done, I had so much on my heart that I wanted to say, and I knew that I was never going to be able to say it. And so I wrote a letter, and it was just basically about how they didn't kill us. They made us stronger. We're going to go out and make a difference in the world, make our small difference. And, he really saved my life. That's what I said. You saved my life, because now I appreciate every new day more than I ever have. And I got to go back and give a victim impact statement where I actually got to be face-to-face with the bomber. And I told him again, I said, you did not destroy me, and I'm going to go on, and my life is going to be better for this.
Yeah.
What was their reaction?
He stared at me the whole time. It was incredible, because I was looking the biggest enemy in the face, the one that tried to kill me and my son and so many other people, and saying, you did not win. Terrorism will never win.
Amen.
Yeah, and really that kind of goes back to what you were sharing in our first segment about perspective. Nobody gets to choose what happens to them, but they do get to choose how they respond to it.
Yes.
And there are some people that, that they certainly haven't been through the traumatic experiences of your situation and circumstance, and yet they've chosen to allow bitterness and resentment and, a lot of the questions that don't have easy answers, the why questions and the what if questions, to really control the real estate in between their ears. And it causes them to allow an event to stop their life. They go on living, but they haven't enjoyed life. You've moved past this. Your book is again titled Taking My Life Back. And you've taken the opportunity to choose to go beyond that and continue to live, continue to raise a son, have another child, and inspire others. Perspective is a big part of that. What other things help you get through that? Because not everybody gets the perspective from themselves. Sometimes they got to reach outside and somebody else is alongside them to say, hey, keep your chin up. who are those people in your world?
Well, I'm very thankful because faith is a huge part of this.
Without question.
If I didn't have something to believe in, then I would have given up a long time ago.
Faith is the victory.
It absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I look towards. And when people say, "How have you not given up?" I'm like, because God's got a plan. Just like you said, Jeremiah 29:11. I have recited that verse I don't know how many times in my life, and it's true. And sometimes we make our own plans, and then we realize God's plans are way better. Yeah. And so, my family is a very big support system for me. I have a wonderful set of friends and family that I'm very, very blessed with. And, I'm thankful that I do have the reminder of how short life is. I feel like I just survived before this, and now I'm living every moment because I know that it could be gone in an instant.
That's right. And you went back to the finish line. Tell us about that.
I did. I had decided the same girl eating chocolate-covered pretzels on the sideline was going to run the Boston Marathon. And so after I got my amputation, I started training in the gym 6 days a week, and I ran the last portion of the marathon in 2015.
Wow. Now, what was that like for you to go back across the finish line where your life changed just a few years ago?
It was huge, and I ran past the place where I actually got blown up in, and the place where 3 people lost their lives, and then a 4th, the police officer. And so I feel like everything that we do now as survivors, we're honoring the ones that couldn't do that, and they didn't make it. And so I live my life like that every day, and it's hard. And I think that people need to understand that just because it was 4 years ago doesn't mean that it's not difficult. Yeah. There's days where I don't want to get out of bed, and I'm terrified to leave my house, especially when terrorist attacks are happening all over the world. But it's still, God is still bigger than all of this.
Well, and I think you said it as well as it can be said. The way that you honor individuals who have suffered is that you continue.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's an important message because there's a lot of individuals in the military. There's a lot of individuals who are working to do what they can to do good in the world, and there are days when quit looks good. It's
Absolutely.
Like, hey, give up is the easy option. I'm out.
Yes.
And it's on those days that you really have to take that deep breath and go, no, there's too many individuals who have paid too high a price. I've got to keep going.
Yes.
And you've done that, and I applaud you for it. This inspirational story has been written here, Taking My Life Back. I want you to get your copy of this book and enable this attitude of constant courage to encourage you, to help you through your darkest hours. Rebekah, thank you for being on our program today. It's been an honor to have you.
So good. After the break, I'll be sitting down with Sarah Beckman to talk about how to come alongside a friend or a neighbor in their time of need. You don't want to miss this. Stay tuned. You're watching The Difference.
What you see is a child reaching for her mother. There's nothing more beautiful than for a child to know that they're loved. There are thousands of children who are reaching for someone who will not reach back because they're not there. This is the reason we're building the Sanctuary of Hope. I want you to help me help these children have a mother that will take care of them, that will love them, that when they cry in the night, someone will come. When they get hungry, someone will feed them. When it comes time to teach them the way of the Lord, that someone will be there. And together, with the Sanctuary of Hope, we can make this happen. God bless you for all that you do to make the Sanctuary of Hope a reality.
Help give the gift of life. Call the number on the screen or visit jhm.org.
Dear Pastor Hagee, I just wanted to write you to say how honored Rebekah and I are to have been partners in your ministry all these years, and to see all the amazing things you've accomplished around the world with the gifts we and others like us have gladly given over the years. Furthermore, it has been so refreshing to see younger generations coming on board to partner with you in spreading Christ's message to the world.
I want to welcome you both to Partnership with John Hagee Ministries. Together, we will make a great impact for Christ around the world.
May God continue prospering you in all your endeavors, your dear friends, Ron and Rebekah.
I want to thank you, our Salt Covenant partners, for making it possible for us to preach the gospel to the nations of the world. Thank you, and God bless you.
Become a Salt Covenant partner today. Call the toll-free number on the screen or visit us online. at jhm.org.
Enjoy watching The Difference but want a more behind-the-scenes look? Learn interesting facts about our guests, comment on our segments, and find out more about the show by following Matt and Kendal on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Keep watching The Difference and follow us on social media to find out more.
Joining me now is Sarah Beckman, author of Alongside, a practical guide for loving your neighbor in their time of trial. Thank you for joining me,
yes,
Sarah. So glad
pleasure.
to have you. Okay, practical guide. Being an ICU nurse, I love that I can open up your book and it gives me like a list of things that you can do to help your neighbor. Tell me why you chose to write this book.
Well, I actually have what I call the decade of hardship, unfortunately. So I was a young mom and went on bed rest. And then with 3 young babies, I had 4 back surgeries.
Oh my goodness.
And then not long after, we actually walked through cancer, terminal illness with 3 close family and friends.
Wow.
And through all of that, I realized that ultimately people were turning to me for advice. And I knew things I didn't realize I knew. And so I felt like we have to put it in writing to help other people.
And you talk about like the practical guide to loving your neighbor, time of trial, what you can say to others. You talk about how in the time of death, what are the proper words? Tell us a little bit about that, because we know there's power in life of death in the tongue. And sometimes there's things appropriately that you can say, and other times don't say that. What are the to-dos and not to-dos?
Yeah, specifically if you lose someone that you love, the thing that I think is most meaningful is if you can actually talk about the person and give a remembrance instead of just that empty condolence. So instead of, I'm sorry for your loss, instead, I loved this about your dad. I loved this about your sister. My favorite memory of your loved one is this, because then they have something, that's all they want to do. Is here and relive. When my brother passed away, I sat and poured over the cards that people sent where they talked about him. And I just sat and cried and reread them. So people want that remembrance, not a condolence.
Condolence. And you talk about everybody can take part of loving their neighbor, and that's what God has commanded us. It is to love our neighbor as you love yourself. What are some things that you may feel insecure, somebody watching, like, I just don't know where to even begin? There's a neighbor that, or a loved one that has lost somebody, or maybe they're going through a divorce, or they're going through an illness. What is something that we can do to take that first initiative step to offer help?
Yeah, I think that we stay away. People want to care, but they don't know how to care. And it's not really a compassion problem. They just don't have the confidence. What do? I don't know how, so they do nothing, which is the worst thing, right? And we are commanded, like you said, biblically commanded to love our neighbor as ourselves. So what does it look like? There's so many ways. I think the first is to show up.
Yes.
Because people are afraid. So they stay away.
They stay away.
And then
don't want to call, don't want to text, you don't want to bother them. You're thinking, well, do they need their space, or do you need to go over to their house?
Yes, and there is some distinction, and we kind of cover that, but it's about relationship and how well. So if you do know someone well, that showing up, because then you're in a position to offer help. Because of proximity. But if you aren't there, they don't know what they need. They don't know how to ask you for what they need when they need it. So really showing up is the first thing. Another super easy way to help is to offer something that you are already doing. So I often will text a friend and say, I'm headed to Target.
Yeah, what can I pick you up?
Aren't we all?
Send me your errands. I know, everybody, send me your errands or what you need me to do for you.
Yes, or I'm already going to be at the grocery store. Send me your list. What can I pick up for you? As open-ended so they can just say, yes, I need that. You must really want to do this. You're already going.
You're already going. And then also, at our church, we do meals. Like if we have a Bible study that if you're part of a cell group and you need help, you can reach out to your leader and they will provide meals for you and somebody will schedule it out. Now, me not always being the best of cook, you always have an option of picking up. But you always tell in your book, you give a guidelines of like, offer to be there and then also to offer one of your gifts. What can you pick up? What are some other things that...
Well, as far as food, that's one really great one. You can offer a meal. And I always say, make it as specific as possible. So using your gifts is a great idea, because when you use the gift that you have, for example, maybe you're a gardener, maybe you're a cook, maybe you're a hairdresser, maybe you love to shop, maybe you love to decorate. And so you can come alongside someone in need by using your gifts, which is, again, the most beautiful fulfillment of God's word.
That's right.
When we use the talent and the gift that he's entrusted to us, we multiply it by offering it to our friend in need. So you might say, I love to garden and I would love to do your window boxes for you. Well, that's the last thing on their mind, but wouldn't it brighten their day when they're coming to and fro from chemo and they aren't looking at dead plants that they can't get to, but they're looking at beautiful, freshly planted flowers.
Well, the book is alongside, and you can find it on Amazon. You can find it
Barnes and Noble, ChristianBooks.com.
And it's literally, you can open it up, respect their journey, talk about a little bit about that. Now, that's something that I know, people need to respect the boundaries. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think the biggest lesson I learned, unfortunately, brings me to tears almost thinking of it, but just the times when I didn't do it right. And I had a best friend going through leukemia, and she I was part of sharing her journey on the prayer chain and things like that, and she'd had a setback, and I jumped into automatic mode, and I shared with the prayer chain before I asked her permission. And that is one of the biggest guidelines of how do we respect their journey. We definitely want to get permission and honor them instead of either our need to tell people or be in the know or act like we have the scoop, or even in the greatest intention of offering to put it on the prayer chain.
You're
right?
thinking, this is going to go around. We fast, we're praying for each other, and this is something that
surely they would want that. Well, of course she wanted prayer, but she wanted it when she was ready, and she wasn't ready to have the influx of attention and support and people saying, are you okay? And so we worked it out, and she was really honest, but I learned a great lesson, respecting their privacy and honoring, asking permission, not sharing what's not yours to share.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for joining us and giving us those wonderful insights on how to provide hope to your neighbor and to come alongside them. Thank you so much for joining us. Matt, wasn't this been a great show with all of our guests?
We have had some great guests on today's program. And indeed, they've shared stories from their hardships and experiences. And I'd really like to thank Rebekah for sharing with us the inspiration that she has drawn from to help her through the difficult seasons of her life. And Sarah, with the great advice on what you can do when you have someone you care about walking through a difficult time. Jesus Christ expects us to be his hands and his feet, his voice, and the loving arms that people need around them. You might not always think that you have something to offer to those who feel like life has lost its meaning, but I assure you, God didn't put you in their life on accident. You're there on purpose. When we read Jeremiah 29:11, the verses that we've referenced so many times in this program, it says that God gives each of us a hope and a future. You are a part of somebody's future. You are a part of the hope that they need today. Don't ever discount what God has given you to contribute in the lives of others. And when life gives you the opportunity to give up, choose not to quit. Because the Bible's very clear that those who endure to the end, the same shall be saved. We don't get to choose what happens to us in life. There are going to be days that seem too difficult to get through. But I assure you, the same God who created heaven and earth is the one who created you. He engineered you to endure the circumstances that you face. And on the other side, the Bible says that you get the chance to tell the world about the victories that God has brought you in this life. I don't know what you're walking through today, but I assure you, you got to watch this program on purpose because God wants you to know that there is a hope, there is a future. His name is Jesus Christ. I want to thank you for joining Kendal and I right here on The Difference.